The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to somewhere in the ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
Joining me today, guys, we have my co-hosts of Haunted, Paul Kimball, Dillon Garland. Gentlemen, welcome to Somewhere in the Ring.
Thank you for having us.
We're here to talk about Bad Blood. Now,
Yes.
The three of us had the opportunity to watch it together last night. We had a little viewing party, some beer, some Mickey D's, I guess, the Golden Arches. And we watched Bad Blood. The expectations were high. We'll see if they met our expectations. But Paul, we kind of got your backstory on wrestling, your history with it last time you were on with us to review WrestleMania. But Dillon, tell us a little about your history with wrestling. When did you start watching? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, for sure. When I was young, my dad used to watch a lot of it, and I think for the first kind of few years that I was aware of professional wrestling, it was more kind of in like little bits and pieces. So it was kind of during maybe the middle to late part of the Attitude Era, so like the late '90s, early 2000s. And I just kind of remember getting a little bit more enamored with this idea of these characters more than anything. And I was lucky enough, he took me back when Halifax actually got TV shows, Hunter. Monday Night Raw came to Halifax in 2003, and he took me to that. And there was just like no turning back at that point. I was full-fledged into it. I've been watching regularly in at least one sense or another since 2003. I just fell in love with the process of like, wow, the theatrics, the characters, the violence. I just loved every bit of it. So yeah, that's kind of how I got thrown into it. Was a little bit of Attitude Era, but really in the Ruthless Aggression Era, I was thrust into the void.
That's interesting, because I could tell you right now, like my void was the Ruthless Aggression Era. I didn't watch any of it, so like I had no idea who Batista was. I never seen a John Cena match, basically. It was crazy, man. And I got back into it all when Peacock in the United States came around and they started dropping everything on there. But Halifax, I want to talk about that for just a minute. Now, you guys have a history. You've actually been to events in Halifax together. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
Our first date. Yeah.
Your first date. How romantic. Honestly, I can't think of a better first date.
We took each other to wrestling. It was charming.
He never called me back. It's fine. It is what it is. Okay.
Well, that's awkward. What were your most memorable moments at that event?
Wait, hold on. We saw two that I can recall. One was a WWE house show in the Halifax Forum. And my two most memorable events of that were, one, Dillon with his Curtis Axel sign, because he was, whatever it said, there's a picture of the two. I said, I want to get in on this too. And it was pretty good house show. And the other one was actually a local indie wrestling promotion, which is why we're here on Haunted. And that's a very long story, but originally I got called in to pitch a wrestling show, and that didn't work. So then I pitched a ghost show. The young producer next to me at the time with the wrestling show got a very valuable lesson in producing 101. So that became Haunted, actually. That's what became
interesting.
Haunted. But my enduring memory of that, which is one of my favorite memories of wrestling at all, was Dillon and I were sitting, like, it's all flat chairs, and it's a multi-purpose center. So the ring's up here, and you basically got ringside seats everywhere. And these guys, Speedball Mike, I think, something was his character name, and they spilled out into the audience, and then they just went flying through chairs everywhere right by us, and like kaboom! And I thought, okay, yeah, this is fun. I could work with this. And then I looked over and I saw Dillon was filming it, and I thought, yeah, all right, I can work with this guy too.
That's so cool that like Haunted was spawned from wrestling. I couldn't think of a better way.
Pretty much.
To go. Yeah. It's kind of like Andrew and I, my co-host, obviously, we're such good friends. We're good friends in New York, but when I moved away to Scotland, it happens. Distance can really, kind of not tear friends apart, but it's not like, let's just meet up for coffee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work anymore. And we were always talking about wrestling, texting each other after PLEs. And Andrew had the sudden idea, like, why don't we just record this, start a podcast? Like every middle-aged guy out there, like everyone wants to hear my opinion on something. So why don't we just make a wrestling podcast? So yeah, wrestling really does spawn a lot of things, but I think wrestling also brought Andrew and I back together as friends, which I thought was pretty cool. But
it
Dillon,
didn't bring Dillon and I back together.
It tore you apart.
Dirty, filthy Lucre did that. But we did consider once going to WrestleMania, or at least he mentioned he was going. And I thought, oh well, let's go together. I couldn't. I was working on something. I honestly can't remember what it was. But you went to wherever Dillon is. There he is, right there. You went to WrestleMania in New Orleans, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was there for the crowning of Daniel Bryan and the conclusion of the Yes Movement, but also I was there for the death of the streak, which I didn't want to be there for, but hey, just my luck.
Wow, what a night of whiplash. Yeah. Did you see that guy, Dillon? Did you see him in the arena?
No, I got to be honest with you. I was so high up. I think I had a nosebleed. Like, it is insanely happy. I will say, though, if you're ever going to WrestleMania, like, don't be scared of the cheap seats. Like, the whole experience is just incredible. But I will say, I will never forget the sound of 80,000 people going silent all at once when it was 1, 2, 3. It was like the air got sucked out of that place like that.
Oh, man. I can't even imagine. I've never been to a PLE. That's definitely one of my dreams. I've been to SmackDown. I've been to 2 Raws, couple live events, but yeah. Well, okay. None of us were at Bad Blood, but like I said, we were able to watch it last night. And let's start there. I've got my trusty slideshow here. Ooh. So we had WWE Bad Blood, and this was the first one since what? Was it 98?
I think 2004.
Oh my gosh, there was another Bad Blood. Okay.
Maybe 2005. They kind of took a break. They did 97, and then I think they took like a few years off. But then I remember in 2003 they brought it back because it was, I think it was Shawn and Hunter in the cage. No, it was Hunter and Kevin Nash. And then the next year they did Shawn and Hunter. So it might be 2004. Yeah, a long time though. So 20 years.
Wow.
Look at that logo. It screams the greatest of all time, Kane. That is amazing.
I can tell you guys right now, spoiler alert, that is not the last time you're going to hear about Kane today. if last night proved anything. But yeah, I mean, Bad Blood is sort of an event that WWE seems to use as like ending very tense rivalries. Like either it's the conclusion of one, could be the start of one, but we saw probably the conclusion to one of the best rivalries we've had in a very long time. So let's, I guess, just kind of dive in if Nia you guys Jackson don't mind. Oh. Yeah, right. We had opening the show, which we were all, at least I was, I don't know about you guys. I was a little surprised. I was hoping this was going to be the main event, but we will get to that. But Hell in a Cell, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. Finally, It was time. So initial thoughts. What did you guys think about the first match of the night, CM Punk versus McIntyre in, I should mention, the silver Hell in a Cell, not the red one. Thank God.
Paul, you can go first here.
I was a little disappointed it wasn't a Punjabi prison match.
Yeah.
I can't lie to you there.
That's fair.
Jinder Mahal as a guest referee would have been awesome. However, as that did not happen, my highlight is there was so much blood on Drew McIntyre's face, and these two can attest to it. I was screaming, "It's Kane! It's Kane!" Because A, I love Kane, if not necessarily Glenn Jacobs, and B, his face looked like, the mask of Kane more than, and if he threw his hair back like that, it was like, oh my God, this is Kane. So Dillon's not familiar with this, although we mentioned it last night, but this will be my first, and maybe Ryan, my only time, although I think we both know that's not true. WWE is infinitely greater than AEW. So if AEW was to do a match like this, it'd be good, and everybody would be like talking about it. Oh my God, look at Moxley bleed. This is amazing. Oh, rah. You know what? WWE does it, and I'm guessing some of those AEW stands, is that what the kids say or whatever, are just like, no, it was all fake, and it looked fake and everything. Hey, kids, I got news for you. This was a match of the year contender. I think it's a very strong contender for match of the year. Mm-hmm. Why is it a match and it gets an A+ for me. A++, sorry. I give it an A++. Why? Because you get two consummate professionals. Sorry, AEW. CM Punk is a consummate professional. He's hard to get along with. But the man's professional, unlike Jungle, whatever his name is, Jungle Boy, or what's he called now?
The Scapegoat.
The Scapegoat. Okay,
so perfect. Tough. Perfect. Leather jacket, beard. Oof.
It sounds like you have bad blood with AEW. Just a guess from this first.
I do. I like their pay-per-views. I just don't. Their weekly shows are horrible. They're just horrible. So yeah, it was amazing. It's the kind of match that actually wouldn't have looked out of place on an AEW pay-per-view. Except it had tons of backstory, great storytelling in the ring, and all the blood and action that you would expect from AEW, but it had all the things that Tony Khan doesn't know how to do. So yeah, it was just amazing. I've always been a Punk fan. Dillon can attest to that. I think you can too, Ryan. Love CM Punk. Just amazing. Best entrance music in the business. Thank you, Living Color. And Drew McIntyre, I've always been a fan. He's had his ups and downs. He's had his high points, his low points. But the guy is, as I said, a consummate professional. Those two guys went out there, tore the house down. I'd hate to be anyone else in the back going, oh, no, how do we top that?
Right.
And some people did a pretty good job of trying, but you don't top it. That's I get why it wasn't the last match. It's a Bad Bloodline. That was the super story. But it deserved to be the last match. And, the audience would have gone home happy with the outcome, first of all, but also just would have went, holy whatever, at the end of the night. Like, that was amazing. So yeah, A++. I don't have anything else to say. I mean, it's just amazing. There's so many great spots. If I had to pick one favorite spot, I know the table thing was great, but just Drew undone by he can't get past his hatred of CM Punk. That I did, and the announcers really sold it. Cole is the GOAT too, maybe. But just, they really sold the fact that Drew, again, undone by just this pure hatred for CM Punk. And that's like long-term, next level, as a friend of ours would say, storytelling. That seriously, I really appreciated. Sorry, some in references there. So yeah, A++. I'm going to add another plus. I'm going to add one of the pluses I took away from one of the other matches because of the screwy ending. So Dave Meltzer, A+++, whatever that is, like 6 stars. Amazing. I love Great match.
I love it, man. Yeah. I mean, there's so many spots we could talk about. Obviously, Punk drew blood first, which was pretty hard to look at. But then, my God, I'll just say it. Punk, it's a toolbox and rams Drew right in the head. I was told that the color on that was not planned. I was told by my super secret insiders in the WWE because I've got those connections. But when you see, yeah, it was. Let's be honest. That crimson mask that appeared on Drew, I thought they were going to stop the match. Like, that's enough blood to stop the match. Let's be completely honest. And we would then learn that he got something like 12 staples in his head. 16. My God. It just gets worse and worse. Yeah. Yep. And he posted a photo of it, and I could barely look at it, but I'm kind of getting ahead of it. Dillon, what did you think?
I will give you my favorite. Dillon, that reminds me of my favorite moment in the match. Too. The whole Kane thing, amazing. But when they went to give McIntyre the towel the second time, like the ref was trying to wipe him off the second time, and he was just like, he pushed him away.
I love that.
He's in the moment, but he's just like, no. He's like, oh. And he really sold. That was great. That's a a lot of people might not notice it or it goes by so quick, but that's a really nifty little bit of storytelling right there. So yeah, that was probably my favorite moment, and it's one of the least flashy ones. But he's so committed. They're both so committed that he's like that.
Yeah,
great.
Drew was just in another world. I mean, the intensity in his eyes, it was unlike anything he looked psychotic and just blinded by rage, and Punk took advantage of it. Dillon, what do you think, man?
I think that, like, over the past oh, it's been a while since they started doing this, but when they started doing the gimmick pay-per-views where it was like Hell in a Cell or anything like that, I think we just watered down the concept because we were filling in the cell with wrestlers and not necessarily having the story dictate the cell. And I think we ended up losing a lot of the luster of what is one of my favorite gimmick matches. What I will say is that I think this match kind of revitalized the concept for me of Hell in a Cell. And it did one thing specifically for me that I think too many people expect in a cell match that this didn't do, and I'm glad it didn't do. This match for me on a rating scale, 5 stars, A++. There was nothing I would have changed. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. But the one thing that I love that they did not do is they didn't leave the cell. They did not climb the cell. They did not tease this crazy stunt. We didn't need it because Punk knows this and McIntyre knows this. The cell, the structure itself inside is enough to tell the most violent tale. And these two deserve that story the way that they've been kind of telling the story over the past year. But they took advantage of everything that was inside and made sure that, hey, people that walk inside this cell, they're going to be changed. They don't need to climb the top. As much as I appreciate what Mick Foley has done, they don't need to climb to the top. They don't need to throw themselves off. They don't need to do these crazy stunts outside because inside is the devil's playground. And I felt like Punk and McIntyre brought that back in spades. And one thing, too, and I'll kind of say this, where Paul mentioned the wipe away of the towel, which I think was genius. The one thing that I loved about when the match ended was the second Punk walked out, it's like all of the adrenaline ran out and he collapsed.
Yeah.
And they had to give him oxygen. And it's like he barely survived this thing despite the fact that he was the winner. So I thought it was just a beautiful car crash storytelling. It did everything it could to show you that, hey, you never want to step inside the steel cage because you will be changed. You will be battered. You will be bloodied. You will never be the same person you were the second you walked in there. And I thought they just told that story perfectly. I think in the match, my favorite part, and this is kind of like it's a little bit inside baseball, but also part of the story. It's when McIntyre did the suplex to CM Punk through the table on the outside. And there's so much, like, it's just limited space within that cell. So you kind of got to be really careful. But if you go and watch that and you slow it down and watch every little muscle movement that McIntyre is doing, I would argue he's probably the safest wrestler in the world because he utilized the strength of his knee. He kind of repositioned halfway down doing the move, and they landed, I'm assuming, as perfectly as you can land going through wood onto concrete. But I thought it was a great ending to the story. I thought Punk did incredibly well by, like, not usually when he comes out and he does his entrance, he's a little bit excitable. He's a little bit excited. He's like, holy shit, here we go. Crowd, bring it on. He was so stone-faced this whole time. And for me, it just built up the dangerous side of this cell. So yeah, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was great. And spoilers, should have ended the show.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wonderful. We got Drew, what we thought were going to be thumbtacks, drawing back to the early Hell in a Cell days. It was actually the beads from the bracelet. Yeah. The bracelet being a character of its own in this whole rivalry was just incredible. Or I guess more of a device. Was just amazing. To see Punk just shove him down McIntyre's throat, which I was like literally concerned. I'm like, it'll take 2 of those beads for him to choke on. And Drew McIntyre, rest in peace, buddy. But man,
I follow the girl who made the bracelet in the first place and gave it to Punk I think it was at a meet and greet or something. And it's got to be like so amazing to be like, hey, not only did I get to meet like one of my favorite wrestlers and pass him on like a item that he thought was important, but it also became like the most sought after device in professional wrestling for a 7-month period. Like that's got to be incredible.
You know what? That's so funny you mentioned that, Dillon, because I was on Twitter this morning surfing the Bad Blood reviews and everything, obviously, but I saw that Punk actually invited that fan back to a show and made a custom bracelet for her.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, and Paul said earlier, I think we're all fans of CM Punk. I was not. Paul can attest to this. Andrew can attest to this. I hated the guy.
Oh, hated
him. And now I cannot be a bigger fan. He has beyond won me over. And to see that match last night, a part of me is like, stop, please. Go off and just be a person now. You cannot have a better match than that. I can't see it. A
Here's
plus
the
plus
thing.
plus plus.
Here's the thing with CM Punk. The moment you think he's done, he's got more story to tell. Welcome to the cult of personality, Ryan.
Love it.
It's also in his contract right next to the "you cannot talk to the hotels." It says you have to like CM Punk. So if you're going to be on Haunted, you have to like CM Punk. Memo
Signed.
to Jacob James. You probably
Yes.
don't even know who CM Punk is, but he's one of our co-hosts, and
he'll be listening to this. Yeah,
he needs to tune in and listen and embrace the Punk.
Embrace the Punk. Well, yeah. Okay. So we mentioned CM Punk won. He got some oxygen. He said, I want to call my wife. Beautiful ending. Beautiful, beautiful ending. And then, like Paul mentioned, how do you top that? And it was extremely difficult for the two women in our next match.
2 words, Nia Jax. That's how you move it up to the next level.
I know, man. Nia Jax. People are loving her now. Absolutely loving her. She is our champion.
Evil.
Our women. She looks really evil if you're watching this on YouTube. Bailey looks weird too, actually.
Bailey looks, yeah, really evil.
Not the best promo shot, but man, how do you follow a match like that? I thought they did all they possibly could do. We had Nia Jax versus Bailey for the women's championship. What'd you guys think? How was this match, and who did you want to come out on top? Paul, let's start with you.
Oh, who did I want to come out on top? Despite all my joking, Nia Jax, for a lot of reasons. One, Bailey is my least favorite 4-horse person. So, I'm never a huge Bailey fan. She's fine, but fine.
Yeah.
Nia Jax, I believe in redemption stories. So having killed almost every female wrestler on the roster and gone away, she comes back. She looks better than ever. Her wrestling is tightened up. Her character work is tightened up. She looks like she actually cares now. So she's done really good work to make herself better. And that should be applauded and rewarded. So kudos to Nia Jax. Because I always kind of liked her. It's just I always thought, ooh, you watch her and go, she's going to kill somebody. And it sometimes towards the end of her first run didn't look like she cared. Like she just didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. So now she seems to be in. But she has the story. Like the story is her and Tiffany. And so to me, Bailey is a bit of an afterthought in this. The match was fine. I'd give it a B, maybe a B minus, B minus B. They were fine. But the story is, and they shouldn't drag it out too long, but the story was, Tiffany, when's she going to cash in? When's she going to cash in? I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. And I think to the point that when, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with somebody, I think it was Bleacher Report I read. Again, Ryan, I obsessively read the reviews and stuff afterwards too. And they said when Tiffany cashes in and when she wins the title, because she will do it as a massive baby face, not as the heel that you sort of have gotten used to her. And they're doing a really good job of making her so put upon by Nia. What they did with Sami Zayn and rehabilitating him as a face with the bloodline, so put upon by the bloodline that eventually when he cracks, and it was really more obvious with him than it is with Tiffany, but it's coming with Tiffany Stratton too. She's going to go over as a baby face, and she's going to have a nice run. But they're slow walking a pretty good story, and this was a pit stop on the way to the story. So I hate to refer to one of the pioneers of the women's revolution as a pit stop on another story, but if you've been around long enough and you've held enough titles like Bailey has, and you've done enough things, you occasionally transition into, hey, my job's to put these guys over now. Mm-hmm. And my turn will come around again at some point, and hers will. But at the moment, the story is Nia and Tiffany, and the match furthered that along. So kudos for that.
Last question for you, Paul, before I move to you, Dillon. Nia Jax's outfit, Paul.
Yes.
What was she wearing?
She looked a lot like the greatest wrestler of all time, Kane. She looked just chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, baby.
To her sartorial choice last night, 2 nights ago. I guess it's Monday now. But if that was a conscious kind of tip of the cap to the demon incarnate, the big red machine. Great, good. Like that kind of, if it wasn't, then it's just a happy coincidence and yay. But if it was, and I think maybe it was, then, that's a nice little thing to see, a little to the past, especially to somebody who was so associated with these kinds of matches.
Absolutely. And I do think it was, because we'll get to sort of the end of the match where she made a movement that was quite reminiscent of maybe both or at least one of the undead brothers, I guess. So
And I will say that's the great thing about WWE. They have such a long and storied and rich and occasionally not so good, but mostly rich history that they can do things like that. Mm-hmm. Unlike AEW.
He's gonna sneak it in when he can.
Every single review. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Every match. Dillon, what did you think of Nia versus Bayley and our referee, who we shouldn't forget? I hope she's okay.
Yes. Thoughts and prayers to Jessica Carr, who took quite a slam. I'm a huge fan of this matchup, and I'll tell you why. And it's kind of one thing that I wish they would do. This is like a little bit of a critique of the way they tell some of these stories. So I'm a huge Bayley fan. Sorry, Paul. I got in on the ground floor. I was a hugger. I have a shirt somewhere in my closet, the I Am the Hugger purple shirt. I've been a fan of Bayley since minute one. And quite frankly, I'm excited for her to at some point have the wacky inflatable tube men once again. But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I kind of wish they would push a little bit more on WWE TV, is that Bayley, if I remember correctly, she was either one of the earliest or possibly one of the first to ever defeat Nia Jax in NXT. Nia went on this, undefeated streak, Goldberg style in NXT, because she is, the beast of that division. But Bayley was one of the first ones to beat her. And I kind of wish they would remind us of that, because it is kind of like, oh man, there's an asterisk next to Nia Jax's NXT history, and that belongs to Bayley. But I always love this matchup because it has been going on for so long. It's hard to top coming after a Hell in a Cell that involves CM Punk, somebody we never thought would be on WWE television again, let alone inside of a Hell in a Cell match. So I think it got hurt by that. But there's one thing that I find Hunter is really good at that Vince was not good at. It's giving the talent time. I find that there's a lot of matches on weekly TV and even pay-per-views where the first few minutes, 5-10 minutes, it's like, okay, man, the crowd's not quite into it. They're kind of silent. It's not really doing much. But by the end of it, the crowd is losing their mind. They lost it when Tiffany came out. They lost it with my favorite moment of the match when Nia Jax, Michael Myers herself up. They had them in the palm of their hand by the end. And the fact that these two were able to go out, these four actually, because I'll throw Jessica, the ref, and Tiffany in this, they were able to turn that around. They got the crowd back in their hands and in their pockets. And then by the time they were ended, everybody's fully invested. And to do that after a Punk McIntyre classic, kudos. They nailed it. And I got to appreciate the fact that even though it didn't quite hit, I'm sure, as much as they wanted to, the Nia Kinrana that she tried to pull off there.
Yeah.
Take a risk. It didn't quite work out, but I appreciate the fact that you actually did try and take the risk.
Right.
But for me, I thought it was a pretty good match. It was enjoyable. And I think part of that is my bias because I am such a Nia Jax Bayley historian in a way. But that spot was never going to be easy for anybody. And I think they made the best out of what they had and did, what anybody hopes to do, which is take an exhausted fan base and bring them back into your story.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dillon. I'm just imagining you in a tweed suit. What is your PhD in? Oh, Nia Jax and Bayley.
Yes, I am a historian in Nia Jax specifically. And I'm also, I have a PhD in the Bayley Buddies. So if you need any information, I am here.
If you bring those inflatables back, I'll bump her up a couple notches on the 4 horsewomen. Probably ahead of Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. Charlotte is like the queen of all queens.
The queen.
Yeah.
You bring those inflatable things back, Bayley goes to 2 or 3 on my list. Sure. Yeah.
I love it. Well, okay, so grades all around. Let's grade this one. Paul? Okay.
I give it a B.
Yep. Same. Yep, I'm going with a B.
I'm gonna give it a B plus, and the only reason I'm giving it the plus is because they did have that sort of like oof spot of following up the Hell in a Cell, and I thought they did pretty good. So I'll give it a B plus.
Love it. Yeah, great story told. Can't wait to see where it goes.
You know what?
next.
I'm going to give it a B plus too. You know why? I had forgotten the sit up. Like when that gets an extra delving back into the history and the homage. I was thinking about the costume because you mentioned it, but I totally kind of blanked out on that. That was awesome.
You freaked out last night. I remember.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god! So,
Spit out your chicken nuggies.
I did. All my chicken nuggies.
This podcast sponsored by Saucy Nugs.
We should mention that. Yeah. Bad Blood and this episode sponsored by Saucy Nugs. And also some, what was it? Health insurance or injury?
Oh my god.
That
the
was
fact
hilarious.
That all through Hell in a Cell, when they were showing the repeats or the like kind of showing what was going on, it was always like Morgan injury insurance. It's like, you know what? Honestly, great.
And Prime.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's amazing how quickly they cleaned the ring up too after the.
Oh my god!
It was the first match.
I didn't even think about that. And
Dillon mentioned that last night. It was like, yeah, this is good work, guys.
It was a war zone after that Hell in a Cell, but we've gushed enough about that. Forgive the pun. So great first two matches, and then I'm gonna be honest. I think this is where just boom, we hit a wall. Triple H comes out, amazing, love it. The crowd popped like crazy when Triple H came out, but it was for a reason that I think we all can agree was boo worthy. So
did
how many people were there? 17,000 or something like that. I'd say 95% of them booed for this, and this was the history-making announcement by Triple H that we are going to have at Crown Jewel our world champion and our champion, I guess, competing, which is great. I'm excited to see Cody versus Gunther. Not so much Nia Jackson, Liv Morgan, but the big thing about this is none of their titles will be on the line. What they will win is a brand new title, which is the Crown Jewel belt, and this will take place in our favorite place, Saudi Arabia. And you could hear 17,000 people not give two Fs about this. And what did you guys, let's do, I guess, a mini review of that announcement. And then I guess we should tack on what happened after that when Gunther came out. So who wants to take that? Dillon.
I'll take it.
You got it.
I hate with every inch of my body the Saudi Arabia shows. And I want to preface this. I understand to an extent of the usefulness of, say, showing a young girl or a young boy in Saudi Arabia, like, hey, check out this entertainment. It's not your fault why we're here, but hopefully it will inspire you. And, you know, seeing women in that role is obviously very important in a place that has historically been a little oppressive when it comes to that. But I hate them with all my heart because they're so useless. And I mentioned this last night when we were watching it. I was like, has there been really anything of note that has happened at a Saudi show? And it's usually just kind of like a fan. It's like, this is how I can describe it. It's like somebody picked up SmackDown versus Raw for the PlayStation 2. They unlocked all the legends. They picked Shuffle, and then they just created a card most of the time. Right. And it's just not a useful thing. Aside from the politics and BS of the Saudi shows adding into all of that, I just don't find them useful at all. I know they have a contract. I know they have to pay the bills. And I know that, you know, doing shows like this probably, hopefully, gets the wrestlers a little bit more pay. But I just find them a useless kind of experiment overall. So I was happy when Gunther came out because I knew at that point, okay, well, this segment is over and now we're going to move on to actual business. And I can't believe I'm saying this because if you asked me this a year ago, I would have said absolutely not. But I was happy to see Goldberg. And I was happy to see Goldberg because they had kind of set it up in a way with Gunther calling him his favorite wrestler of all time to Bret Hart's face, which was great heel work. But if Goldberg's going to have one last match, which I'm assuming they're going to lead to, especially after this, I don't mind it being Gunther because Gunther's a hard-hitting guy. Goldberg is limited. We all know that. So if they just kind of have like a 5-minute brawl or 3 minutes, which was line of the night for me from Gunther. I got 3 minutes for you, Bill. I'm not totally upset with that. I hope it's not at a Saudi show. I will say that because, again, I just think they're useless pay-per-views. But I'm intrigued with Cody Gunther just as sort of an exhibition match, but I couldn't care less about that belt. It's beautiful. It's pretty. I just don't give any care to like who wins that. It's the same as when Braun Strowman won the greatest Royal Rumble of all time in Saudi. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, cool. I guess like, look, can we get back to business now?
Exactly.
So I talked to you guys about this last night. I think they did the best they could, especially Gunther and Goldberg and Sami Zayn as well. I got to give them credit for coming and crashing the party. I think they did the best they could with basically what was an infomercial for Saudi Arabia. But yeah, it's another thing where it's like, well, okay, cool. Can we move on? Because I really don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, what did you make of this entire segment, the whiplash we got?
I give the whole segment a D-. It would have an F-, except it had 1, 2, 3 redeeming features. The first one is the belt does look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you actually made the main title belts look something like that belt, I'm all for it because it looks awesome. But that's never going to happen. So actually, it gets an F+ because I'm going to take that one away. That's fantasy, Paul, with belts. The 3-minute line, that was really funny. And I hope you're a better dad than you were a pro wrestler, also hilarious.
Ooh.
Next to his kid and wife, too.
Yeah.
So
his wife was like, get in that ring. Get in that ring now.
So as a massive Gunther fan, in fact, some of my friends who are AEW diehards, Gunther is one of the few WWE guys that they still really like. And the ones I'm thinking of, Tim, you know who you are, and Aaron, it's because he was when he was in WWE NXT as Walter. He's a lot bigger, but I mean, he's just great. Gunther's great, and he's really, you know what? He's one of those guys that the WWE has put their sheen on and literally made him smaller. And everything that they've done with him works. Even the name, which I didn't like at first, Gunther. You know, I thought Walter was fine, but Gunther's better. Everything they've done with him works, and he works. So awesome, cool. That's the end. Everything else, blah. Triple H looked embarrassed to be there. It looked like he knew, you know, damn it, Vince signed this before, and now I'm stuck with it. All right, I got to go do it. Here's a guy who's famous for being able to put his heart and soul out and sell anything. He wasn't even trying to sell it. I mean, really, he wasn't trying to sell it. Nobody was. I thought the interaction with Goldberg, short of those 2 lines, meh. I mean, no offense to Gunther, but I mean, fine, have a match, do your thing, retire Bill for the 18th time. But to me, the thing that offends me, and I'm not really a big fan of the Sammy Gunther thing. I mean, it needs to end. Like, Gunther needs to definitively move on from Sammy. I love Sammy, but you know, it's been going on a bit long. Gunther needs to move on to his next, and I think it'll be Punk, and I'm all for that. So sorry, Sammy, but you're delaying me from getting to Gunther and Punk. But whatever. The thing that bothers me the most is I hate the idea. I hate it of putting the 2 champions, men's and women's, together in what is essentially a glorified exhibition match without their belts on the line. You want to do that? Put the belts on the line, unify the titles. Awesome. I'd love that. Fantastic. I might even forgive it if they did it in Saudi Arabia, if they unified the titles. Probably wouldn't forgive it, but at least I'd go, well, forget it, but at least they're unified. Okay, fine. But they're not doing that. Instead, what you're going to have is one of your 2 main title holders on each show lose at a pay-per-view to the other title holder. And there is this, I mean, you can, like the WWE title and the world title, here they are. No matter how hard they try and convince you that they're equal, the women are more equal. Like, no one stands above the other. But you're going to put one women's champion above the other. And I guarantee you it's going to be Cody going over Gunther. And, you know, I wish it wasn't. Now, if they swerve me, I give it an A+. If it's Gunther going over Cody, okay. But I just don't see that. And even if it was, you're still, I mean, then there's no reason to do it. Just so you can have a belt and throw something in a useless, are we allowed to swear on this show, Ryan?
Go ahead, I'll bleep it.
this useless, shitty pay-per-view that they stick in this country that they shouldn't be doing anything at this time. And you know what? The war is about to break out in the Middle East, so it might get canceled anyway. Who knows? It's just a bad idea to be doing a pay-per-view on so many levels. But to waste a champion versus champion match with no stakes other than a dumb belt that looks great, it's terrible. It's AEW level bad, and in terms of not being thought out. So,
does Tony Khan owe you money?
Yeah. What did he do to you, Paul? What did he do to you?
I'm back down to an F-.
Okay.
I hated that segment. Move on to the next match, kind of thing.
That's fair, man. Yeah, WWE has too many titles. Like, can you guys name me the Speed title winners right now?
The what title?
The WWE Speed.
I can name you the first winner because I think it was Ricochet, and I'm not even confident on that. But I'm not either. The women's one. Yeah,
exactly. My point exactly. Like,
what the heck is the Speed title? I honestly don't know. I don't.
It's the 3-minute or less matches, Paul, that are exclusively on Twitter X.
I do remember that. Right. Yeah. No, it was a terrible idea, so I don't care.
Exactly. And I see this as the same thing. Just useless props for business. Like, these are exclusive matches to Twitter. This is an exclusive event for Saudi Arabia. It's business. It's business. And we always, you always hear, oh, well, it's business. Like, you can't blame them for wanting to make money. But there has to come a point where you're like, this is actually damaging the product. And I think when you see on live television at a PLE, 17,000 people booing for your announcement, there's a problem. Like, there's a problem.
I could rant all day on having two titles, and I get why they do it. And so I'll rant for like 40 seconds. When Roman Reigns was holding the title, and whoever was holding the other title, Seth is great. Gunther is great, or whoever's holding the title is great. They're not like, it's not the same. You just do. Unify the titles. I know I have no influence over WWE whatsoever, but I should get some consideration for all my AEW bashing. So, give me this one. Unify. Speaking of a promotion that has way too many titles, AEW. So, unify the titles. Let the champion tag women's and men's. If then you want one on each show, that's the IC and the US title. There you go. Those can be the show specific titles. But I want a unified champion of the world in men's, women's, and tag team, and I want them on both shows. And everybody can then aspire to be that champion. That's my rant.
I'm going to be the contrarian, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I don't think we've ever had a more successful brand split than right now. I think Hunter knows how to kind of discern the both. I don't like the idea of currently, because quite frankly, I've been watching since regularly since 2003. I've never loved the full roster more than right now. I think they're the most stacked in terms of talent. I love the two belts. I love the heavyweight. I think it's growing. Damian Priest's run was one of my favorite title runs in a long time. Yeah.
Those aren't even on.
I can't hear you.
I get it, because I think a lot of people that come from a different time, especially starting watching wrestling, Hulk Hogan wasn't competing with another world champion, so I totally understand. But I think they've done it in a way where they've made them different enough where, you know what? Yes, it is forever going to be this. WWE title will always be on top. The heavyweight title or whatever will always be here. But I feel like they have a different feel with the reigns. And I also feel like, especially with the heavyweight title, which was really only created because Roman was going to beat some records, and at some point you got to give somebody a chance here. I think they've done pretty well with it. So we'll see if that lasts, but I personally am so against the unification right now. The other titles, yes. I think there should be another tag. There should be one maybe tag team. I want to keep the mid-card titles and stuff like that separate, but yeah, maybe not yet.
Not yet.
I will stipulate they have done as well as they can do with what I consider to be a dumb concept. But if you're going to have two titles, it's fine. It doesn't fundamentally offend me the way they're doing it. I'm just old school. I remember you had one world title, whether it was Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan or Bret Hart or whoever held it. That was your guy. And you don't have that anymore. You know who the guy is or the woman is, but it's not official. I don't know. I'm just old school that way. It's not a hill to die on, as they say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's creative problem solving, I think, what they're doing right now. Awesome. Well, hey, I think we've given that announcement way too much time. Let's move to our next match with what I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we love this guy, all three of us. He's one of our favorites right now, and that is Damian Priest. We had Damian versus Finn Balor in just a straight up sort of grudge match, in my opinion. It wasn't for a title, but man, you could feel the hate just seething through these two former Judgment Day members. So yeah, Paul, let's start with you, Archer of Infamy. How did you think this match went?
Every time I hear Archer of Infamy, I think I like it because of the old Doctor Who serial where it was the Silver Archer or whatever it was. I think that was in the Sylvester McCoy years. So Nemesis. Yeah, sorry, deep cut there for fellow Whovians. It was a good match. It wasn't a great match. It was a good match. It was a very good match between two guys who know how to do things. I am a huge fan of Damian Priest. If you unified the titles, I'd like to see him be a unified title holder. Like this guy, to me, he's never going to be the guy, but he's going to be like, he can hold the title a couple of times and have a really good career. And he's going to the Hall of Fame. So is Finn Balor.
Yeah.
Finn Balor, tough luck. You got injured when you won the Universal Championship. Good news, you'll always be the first, Universal holder, whatever. Bad news is you had it for like 24 hours, no fault of your own. You read on the internet some critiques of the match that they made Judgment Day, look stupid. Three guys couldn't beat Priest, blah, 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 blah. I mean, fine. Carlito is not exactly a Titan. So the fact that he couldn't swing the outcome, fine. JD McDonough is great. And he had that one thing where he soared like 20 feet or whatever when they threw him over the rope. So it was worth it just to see him for that. But the interference didn't bother me. Really, it was quick and easy and over. The match was between the two of them. One of them had to win. Sorry, folks, spoiler alert. And they made the right choice. Priest is the guy to win, and this feud will continue on, which I'm fine with because they work really well together. Balor will get his back. And so, side note, one of the things I hated most about Roman Reigns' run, and there's not much because I thought it was brilliant, but I hated what they did to the Demon because I love the Demon. And the Demon is a character that never, ever should have lost. Ever. Ever. And while it was a really good match, and I actually thought they might put the title on Balor at one point, no. He shouldn't have lost to Reigns. Finn Balor should have lost to him, fine. But the Demon, no. So I'm going to live for a minute in a universe where that never happened. Because if you hadn't hung that loss on the Demon, the logical conclusion to this feud, for me, and because that didn't mean as much, but this, they didn't know this was going to happen. The logical conclusion to this feud, and I hope they still do it, even though the Demon's been a bit devalued. I hope Balor brings the Demon back one last time. He can't beat Priest. He realizes he needs, I know I said I'd never do it. I have to. And he brings the Demon out, and Priest beats the Demon. And like made man, he's already a made man, but made man. And that would have meant more if Roman Reigns hadn't beat the Demon, because Roman didn't need it. He's already a made man. They should have saved. It's like the streak. Brock Lesnar did not need to break the streak. The guy to break the streak was somebody else who really could have benefited from it. And I think while the streak and the Demon are two different things, and obviously the Demon's not quite the same, I think beating the Demon kind of is a bit of that. And I think they wasted that on the wrong guy. And I think Priest would have been perfect as that guy. Plus, this is a good feud. This is actually, I think, a really great feud. And I hope they bring the Demon back. I hope Priest beats him. That's the end of the feud. And Balor goes off and comes back as what I want him to retire as, which is a face. He gets one more babyface run, and Priest goes off to do what he's going to do, which is win another title or two. So, but I'll give this an A- because I love these guys. The interference probably could have done it without it, but this was a really good, solid, hard-hitting match. This was good stuff.
Absolutely. Just high paced, energetic. You could not ask for more. I'm sorry. Every time you're saying demon versus priest, Paul, I'm getting confused if we're on our wrestling podcast or if we're on Haunted. It's just they're starting to really mix together priests and demons. Yeah. Oh, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed. Anyways, Dillon, what did you think of this match?
Had there not been a CM Punk Hell in a Cell match earlier in the night, this would have been match of the night for me.
Wow.
I love this match. I have something, I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy matches that are just mano a mano, no title, no gimmick, just let's fight. And I think these guys the chemistry is off the charts. They get each other. Their moves were so just beautiful. Their execution was perfection in most parts. And I'm a big El Campeon fan. I'm a huge Damian Priest fan. He might be number one right now for me in the current roster. I thought it was fantastic. In terms of rating, I would probably give it an A or A minus. And the only reason I say that has nothing to do with the match itself. It's just, I know this is chapter 1 of what will probably continue. And I think that when they build upon that story a little bit more, and maybe the stakes are a little bit higher, I think it's going to really ramp up and we're going to get into that A+ territory. I thought the fact that these two didn't slow down once, they had like a rest moment here and there, but the rest moment was to build upon what the next move was. It was just from start to finish, nonstop. Boom, boom, boom. Damian, my God, fantastic wrestler. Balor, I'm so happy they have found this place for him to showcase his work, because I think, especially under Vince, like Paul mentioned, I think the Demon thing, losing to Roman, was just dumb. I don't think it was a good decision whatsoever. But I think that Balor was kind of in a little bit of a shadow for a long time here, even in the Judgment Day. I mean, when you're talking about Judgment Day, you're talking about Rhea, you're talking about Priest, you're talking about JD McDonough doing these crazy stunts. Very little people were talking about Balor very often. If this match did anything, I think it got Balor back into the conversation of, oh, I forgot he was this good. I'm paying attention now. So yeah, for me, I thought it was fantastic. Remove the Cell match, I think this would have been my favorite match of the night for sure.
It's fair. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm going with an A as well. I think you're right. Yeah, whatever comes next for these two will inevitably be in that A+ territory. So yeah, love it. Love it. Well, let's stick with the Judgment Day, kind of. We're moving to the match. I don't want to say the match of the night, but this is the most gimmicky match you could think of, and that was Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. And we had Dom in a shark cage. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth. Wow. Okay, so let's just say Dom and Liv came out in Dom's lowrider. Awesome. We all love that. We got some hydraulics. Perfect. A+ on that. They go ahead. They put Dom in the shark cage, chain his leg to it, and then race him. I don't know. What do you guys think? 10, 12 feet high, if even? I don't know.
They raised him as high as his adoption papers were back in 2005. That's what I will say.
That's fair. And we learned that he is afraid of heights. Rhea Ripley was the one to tell us that, which was interesting. So
I will say, I think both Dillon and I commented on this, but I know I did specifically, and this will get lost in our review. Kudos to WWE for the camera work, because they had a camera behind it, whether on a drone or wherever, a platform, and because they were shooting down with the cage in the foreground and the ring in the background, that shot made him look like he was 30 feet off the ground.
Yeah,
just the way they shot it, and and they didn't go to it too much, didn't over-egg it, but that was really smart. They knew it was going to be there, and whoever set that up, I will say as a director, again, chef's kiss, and they pop it in just when you needed to remind you that Dom's so high, even though he's not actually as high as you think he is. That's like magic. That's like sleight of hand, which is what wrestling is. So that was great.
Absolutely, man, and live. Like we tend to forget, like all of this stuff is being done live, which is just adds that whole other element to it as well. The camera work has so much to do with the storytelling and the obvious the illusion as well. But they really did help tell this story. So, I mean, it was a pretty good match. I would say Rhea kind of dominated for most of it. Liv tried out a couple new moves. I believe her new move is called the Home Wrecker, which is hilarious, which I loved. But yeah, Dylan, I guess do you kind of want to walk us through your journey, your
Yeah.
personal journey, your truth with this match, and how you think it went, and how you think it concluded?
I enjoyed the match because one, I'm a big Judgment Day fan. I think the story with Dom, one, I think Dom is going to be remembered as one of the best to ever do it when he, sets those boots in the ring. I think they did it in a really good way where they focused on the match and we were all aware that Dom was there, but they didn't over egg the Dominic stuff. We weren't cutting to him every 2 shots. It was like, all right, let Liv and Rhea tell their story, pop back to Dominic when we need to, like Paul said, kind of remind them of, hey, still here, still hanging, still in the cage. But I thought these guys had a really good match. The physicality was great. Rhea, I could watch all damn day. I think she's just so good. Liv is like kind of the Joker to her Batman in a lot of ways. So I think the chemistry is always really good there. The only thing that I can say, and I think, we all feel the same way, is just that ending happened. And it's unfortunate. It's a bad day at the office, as a lot of wrestlers say, which is a shame because I think it's overshadowing what is a really, really heartwarming story within WWE right now. And Raquel Rodriguez is back. There were discussions at one point that she might not come back due to her health issues. So the fact that she's able to come back and she's clearly healthy enough to continue on as a wrestler, that's super exciting for me. That's awesome. Welcome back. I'm a big Raquel fan. I guess the timing just wasn't there. And I think the ending is going to overshadow the match for sure. But I thought they had a pretty good back and forth. It was a little bit of a comedy match. The stunt where Dom falls out of the cage and is hanging there, the balls on Dominic Mysterio and the trust he had on that chain, well done. I thought it was fantastic. Probably spot of the night for that match specifically. But yeah, it's a shame that the ending and the timing just didn't work out. I'm hoping they get a kind of a second chance to maybe do this match, not this shark cage match, but for Rhea and Liv to kind of go at least one more time in this story. But yeah, I thought it was fun. But again, it's the cloud over the match, unfortunately, with the botched ending.
It often is. Like, I mean, anything in life, you got to stick the landing, and this just didn't do it. And I feel so bad for Raquel because, yeah, this is her comeback, and the fact that they're kind of playing with the heel thing, I think, is great. Like, she would make a wonderful heel, in my opinion. So I do look forward to see where that goes. Is she going to become a member of the Judgment Day? Is this strictly because she was Liv's partner in the past? We don't know. Will we get to see it? I don't know. Because of that botched ending and how bad it went, I wouldn't be surprised if they reconsider whatever their initial plan was with this return.
That is one thing that I find Hunter is really good at lately, is that if there is some sort of mistake made, they don't shy away from it. They don't kind of pretend like, oh, no, that, like, don't talk about that. That didn't happen. They kind of lean into it. There's a couple examples I can't think of off the top of my head, but just this past year, they've had a few moments where it's like things haven't quite worked out. And here, Paul, you'll like this. I think where Hunter thrives, Tony Khan has a couple of examples where he just falls flat on his face. Like the very famous, barbed wire explosion death match when it was just the pitiful fireworks going off and whatever. They explain that away as to why, what is his name? Bald guy, fights like crazy, beer gut. I can't remember his name. John Moxley's friend, which I really like.
Kingston.
Eddie Kingston,
yeah.
They explained it away as if the reason why Eddie Kingston threw himself over Moxley to save him and he passed out to Sparklers was because he had an anxiety attack. I feel like Hunter's probably going to have a better explanation for the Raquel situation and the ref, and hell, maybe the ref ends up being like in on it with Liv or something. I don't know. But I'm hopeful that they kind of like, do something, because that was rough.
It was rough. Yeah, they need to course correct. I agree with you. I think they will. Paul, what did you make of the match and our little buddy, the Pinata?
I have 2 ratings, as we all do. but I'm using a different rating scale for this one.
Okay.
So the match itself until the end, I give 18 wheels. The ending gets a skateboard without any wheels. Like it's just different modes of transportation. So the match itself to me was an 18-wheeler, and the ending was like a skateboard without wheels. It's just a flat thing lying there. So I won't talk about the ending. You guys have covered it. Here's the best line of the night. Even better than I got 3 minutes for you, Bill, or you're better dead than a wrestler, was Rhea when she turned to the camera and said, "Happy birthday to me," and then started whacking Dom, which just, I don't even know if it's her birthday. That's just amazing. Corey Graves, when he referenced Rhea Ripley's, whether he's her husband or, partner or whatever, Buddy Matthews, like she needs to find a nice Australian guy or whatever. I mean, just, it's the kind of in stuff that I like, and could be a slight dig to AEW by Corey. I have no idea because nobody knows what Matthews is up to. It's trios champ. Dillon was telling me. I don't know. I thought this was the second best match of the night until the ending because I love Liv Morgan on multiple levels. And sorry, and my wife knows that. Liv Morgan is awesome. Liv Morgan, that was the only Jerry Lawler moment of this show. Liv Morgan's become a much better wrestler. Each and every time she goes out there, she learns new things. So whereas I think early on in her career, a lot of people just looked at her as, another pretty face, a Trish Stratus kind of clone, looked and sounded a lot like Trish Stratus. No. She's become really good in the ring. She's even better out of the ring. Her character work in this storyline, awesome. Just like you could so botch this storyline with just in 10 different ways it could go off the rails. Nope. She has kept this on. Dominic Mysterio, who I hated. I thought, God, this kid's got like a year and then he's out. Nope. Dominic Mysterio, future star. He's got a long career. He's gotten better in the ring, but his character work, awesome. And it really shone through in this match. The two of them. And Rhea Ripley, I've always been a huge fan of. Rhea Ripley's like a monster. And her character work is great. Her wrestling is really good. Like she's the total package that you would want in any wrestler. So you put all those things together, and so much bigger than Liv Morgan. So the champ is so much smaller. You kind of got it's like a little bit of an underdog, even though she's the champ. And I loved it until the ending, and then the ending just absolutely sucked the air out of the whole thing. We were all sitting like where I'm sitting now, and it's just like, oh my God. Yeah. And I read the review of the match beforehand, and I knew it was coming, and I just didn't realize they even though the idea was bad, they still botched the execution of a bad idea. So if you have a bad idea, but you still like do a good job of executing, all right, maybe you can forgive that a little. Maybe the run-in in the previous match with the Judgment Day guys was a bad idea, but it was well executed. Carlita pops up, whack. JD goes flying over. Okay, short, sweet, out. I wouldn't have done it, but you did it well. The Ripley Morgan match, bad idea and poorly executed, like confusingly executed. Like, whoa, what's going on here? And Raquel is not the kind of person that can sneak out of the crowd, like as if nobody saw her coming. She's not Sammy with a hood on or something. She's big, and like you're going to see her coming. So unless she's hiding under the ring with Hornswoggle, as we were sort of joking, I think at some other time in the night, like where did she come from? And so it's great to see her back. I'm a fan of hers, and I think they will build something interesting out of this, whether she goes into Judgment Day or not. And even the storyline, because she was Liv's former partner, right? Tag team partners. So I get it. It's just the wrong time in the wrong place. That match is a triangle. The triangle is Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio. That's the story. You don't interject something else into that story. You let that story finish. If you got to hang a loss on Rhea, Dom gets out, eventually weasels his way out of the thing, distracts her, Liv whacks her, done, fine, over. That's fine. Yeah. But bringing Raquel in was just a mistake, and it was poorly done. So that's the skateboard landing. The rest of the match was an 18-wheeler. I loved it. I thought like they're really good together. As Dillon said, I don't think Rhea Ripley's like, she's her own Joker, but it's like two Jokers. It's kind of like two Jokers fighting each other. or Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, or whatever Batman characters you want to get. They're really good together. They have great chemistry, and Mysterio has chemistry with both of them. Like, he works really well with both of them. So WWE's cooked up a little cauldron of wonder here, and I actually want to see the story keep going and going and going, because it's one of the best things on television. Like Penguin, and then this love triangle story. That's the 1-2 right there.
I love it. Prestige television. WWE
Exactly.
will get an Emmy. They will get an Emmy, especially moving to Netflix. I have no doubt.
Happy birthday to me, Emmy worthy. That line alone, I mean, come on. I don't know if that's scripted. It probably is, and that's great. If she thought of that on the spur of the moment,
oh my God, I know.
Give her a raise. Give somebody a raise.
Get her on an improv comedy troupe or something for sure. Well, and the last thing I'll mention about that match too was this was comedy gold too. Rhea literally said, like, hold on, I got some personal business I got to take care of. And the referee said, okay, yeah, you're justified in that. Go ahead. I'll turn a blind eye. And Corey Graves is just like, most corrupt referee ever. That was hilarious. Like, we caught that all on film. That this referee was like, go.
She should have pulled $100 Australian dollars out of her outfit and said, here, I got some business to take care of. Go have a good time for 10 minutes, come back, finish the match or whatever. But I'd forgotten about that. That was really fun too.
It was really funny.
He's about to do the 10 count and she goes, hey, I got business here. Okay. All right.
Wow. Letter grade for this one, guys?
50 years of confusion for why they weren't giving wrestlers a 10 count has now been cleared up for me. It's like they've closed that continuity error. Nice.
In one night. I know.
In one night. Yep. Now I understand.
Yep. I'm going to give it I'm going to go with a B- because of the botched ending. And that's it. That's the only reason. I think, it was all in the timing.
That's like a Mazda rental. Okay, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, what would you give it?
Oh, it's an 18-wheeler and a skateboard all put together.
Done. Love it. Dillon?
I don't know what that means, but I'll give it a B. And I think I'm being like a little bit lenient towards giving them the kind of benefit of the doubt. Bad night of the office, but I think it would have been an A had that ending not happened. So I'll dock a point for that. But hey, welcome back, Rodriguez. Hopefully we can course correct this. But yeah, B for me.
There's nowhere but uphill for her.
Yes. Using letter grades, it gets an A- and an F for me.
Okay.
There you go. It's got to have both.
I like that. Guys, we made it to our arguably what is considered the main event of Bad Blood 2024.
And what a great choice that was.
Yeah. You think so?
No.
Okay. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. And man, this was a team up I wasn't expecting this soon, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, but we got it, and we got it last night. We should mention the entrances were pretty cool, I guess, unique, interesting for Cody and Roman, both coming out to, I believe, a local either high school or I believe it was a college band, and then Roman coming out to an actual like Philharmonic, I believe it was. So that was pretty cool. And then we get this match. We get a tag team match. So what'd you guys think? What did you think of our main event? Dillon, let's start with you.
I think it's weird. I usually really, really love Roman's matches, and I think the pace is always fun where he kind of takes it slow and then kind of we slowly move into the high pace. I thought it was a little too slow in the beginning for me this round. I thought that Solo and Jacob had the upper hand for like maybe a minute or two too long, and I kind of felt myself thinking about other stuff, which I always see as a bad thing in watching a wrestling match. But outside of that, I thought it was great. It was good to see Roman back. Cody was kind of an afterthought in this match, which I found unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think the MVP for me in this entire match was Jacob Fatu. He is fantastic as that werewolf character. He is like delusionally pain-free, despite the fact that he's getting his ass whipped like constantly by other guys. I think it's just an interesting character where he's just like Oh, you can try me, but I'm going to bite you back 4 times as hard as you bite me. So careful. Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good match. I do not believe it should have main evented. I think the cell match, now that we've kind of seen everything, including the thing that we'll talk about in a second, I think the cell match should have been last. But this would have been a hell of an opener, which I think is where it probably should have been. No qualms really, except just I thought it was a little slow in the beginning. But it's always good to see Roman. The one thing I will say, and it's amazing to me because I've been watching since Roman debuted. I have experienced the entire Roman Reigns experience, and I'm so happy for him that it finally, the entire arena is there for them, or for him. Sorry. They are there to see Roman Reigns. They are excited to see Roman Reigns. I saw somebody complaining on Twitter about how there was no like pop when Roman Reigns' music hit. But here's the thing. Look around the arena when he walks out. There's not one single person in that arena who doesn't have the ones to the sky. They are all there acknowledging the tribal chief, which is all he wanted from the get-go. My favorite return of the night, and yes, I understand what I'm saying, my favorite return of the night was Jimmy Uso. I am so happy to see him back. I am a huge Uso fan. And just kind of slowly putting those pieces back together to get the OG bloodline back in the fold here. I'm loving. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought, and this has got to be controversial, I thought it got derailed at the end, not the match itself, but after the match. Had we ended with Roman and Jimmy deciding to save Cody from other members of the bloodline, I think that would have been an incredible story to kind of follow up on. I understand why we got what we got, and I understand why a lot of people are excited. It just didn't do much for me. But other than that, everything contained within that match and story, I thought was really fun. For me, I'd probably give it an A-. I think that's where I'm landing at. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we had the return of both Jimmy and The Rock. So,
Yep.
Paul, what did you make of the match and the ending?
I agree with what Dillon said as slow start. In fact, halfway in, I was kind of like, it's not bad, but this is not, it's not doing anything for me. I like Cody. I'm not the world's biggest Cody fan, but he's fine. I like him as champ. I mean, it's just, I'm not really invested in the new bloodline story because I don't like Solo. He's fine as the enforcer, but I'd rather have the werewolf as the head or something. That'd be fine. The werewolf, Jacob Fatu, he's amazing. So I enjoy watching him. There was good stuff going on. Dillon's right about Roman probably went, I'd say, 5 minutes too long before he activated God mode. The bad guys got in. Like, here's the defining figure of his era and the current champ. And these two guys seem to be taking it to him for an overly long period of time, as far as I'm concerned. So I agree with Dillon on that one. Jimmy Uso back, thumbs up. I just railed against the return of Raquel being poorly executed, as well as being a bad idea. Bringing Jimmy Uso back is the right idea, the right time, and it was really well executed. So, hey, people who booked the previous match should probably watch this one just for that alone. You two would know that I was so much, the match itself, it's fine. It's one of these, it's sort of a gimmicky tag match, and better things are coming. Should not have closed the show. I know why they did. So if you're going to do what they did, then it should close the show. I get that. But they shouldn't have done what they did. So again, a bad decision. And I've come around. I'm a huge Rock fan. Who isn't? I'd watched most of San Andreas the night before while we were shooting Haunted. Not while we were shooting it, but after the Haunted was over. Rock's great. He didn't need to be there. Like, he's to reintroduce him into I've come around. Last night I was kind of excited to see him, even though I knew he was coming. But it just felt off to me. He didn't. I know people are saying all he has to do is raise an eyebrow or hold a finger up. It's like, no, you're going to bring him out. Make that the closing match of the night after you've already had 4 good to great matches, and this is the weakest one. To me, this was the weakest one of the whole thing, because I really liked the Liv Morgan Rhea Ripley match, even despite the disastrous ending. This was the weakest match, and I get what they did it, but it's like, bring him back some other time. And so it didn't leave the night on a sour note for me at all. It was fine. It was okay. And the story will roll on and it will continue. And there was some good stuff. The Jimmy Uso thing I thought was really well done. And also Jimmy Uso coming, like when they're walking away, when Cody's getting beat down and Jimmy Uso goes, you promised, not necessarily you got to help him next time, not necessarily we're good guys now, but you gave your word. And we, and Reigns is like, yeah, okay, let's go back. I mean, that they can still be sort of heels or at least tweeners, but noble ones, like Two-Face in the Batman thing. He's a noble villain, whereas the Joker's just crazy or evil or whatever. I will say, though, slight side note, 30 seconds. When you see Roman Reigns, it's amazing to me. Like, he was getting booed out of the building. At some points, not for a good reason, but then eventually for the right reasons. The love that people have for him and just how much they have played to all you people, many of whom are AEW fans, who hated the Roman Reigns run, you were so wrong. Everything good about pro wrestling. And I was one of those guys that occasionally said, no, they need to take the title off him now. It's going on too long. Nope, WWE got it right. They stumbled into the ending and Cody's the ending of the story. They kind of went down the wrong road, but they were smart enough to then back the truck out and go, okay, go down this road. We get it. So fine. Maybe we'll have this. You can have me back on sometime, Ryan. We'll talk about the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, but we talked about that briefly last night. There are 4 figures on Mount Rushmore, the actual Mount Rushmore. There's only 4 presidents on it. There'll be 5 if Trump wins. Actually, there might only be 1. He'll take all the other ones off and just put himself up. So, to me, the Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, and I love Bret Hart, I love Shawn Michaels, I love The Undertaker. I mean, all great wrestlers. I love The Rock. Are people who define eras. Hogan defined an era. He's on it. Steve Austin, not my personal favorite, but he defined his era. He's on it. Who am I missing here? Cena. Cena, whether you like it, and I love Cena. Cena defined his era. There's 3, and Roman Reigns is the 4th figure on the Mount Rushmore of WWE pro wrestling, because he has defined his era. I actually prefer Seth Rollins a bit as a character and as a wrestler, but he and Reigns for me are like this. But Reigns is, they made the right choice. The guy's a star, and to see him come back and just the energy and everything, however it's manifested, is amazing. And to all these people who say, so I got in a little bit of a Twitter feud with a couple of guys, I think they're Trumpers, about baseball. And I had posted, because I saw that Bob Costas was getting a lot of heat for being, he's boring as an announcer. You're like, get him off the... Bob Costas is the greatest living baseball announcer now that Vin Scully has passed away. And Bob Costas understands how you call a game. You don't scream and yell and everything. You let the action and the players, and you're there to basically just call the game. And you don't have to yell. Vin Scully did that too. Long story. Roman Reigns, the thing like, yeah, people weren't screaming his name. They don't have to. It's like Bray Wyatt. You've got the whole world in your hands when they're quiet and they're doing the thing you want them to do. Like, that is power. That is having... So there are different ways to manifest it. But Reigns is amazing. So despite not being a huge fan, really, of this match, maybe it was fine. To see that and to give me an opportunity to reflect on the only other 3 guys that I remember who could define an era like that: Austin, Hogan, and Cena. And Reigns is that guy now. And I don't know who the next guy is, but for now and the foreseeable future, it's Roman Reigns. And WWE got all 4 of those guys right. For all the things they've screwed up over the years, all 4 of those guys they got right. That's something.
The next guy, just to spoil for you, Paul, the next guy will be Dirty Dominic Mysterio. Mark my word.
Careful.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, I don't necessarily disagree, because that guy has, whatever. It's not Braun Breaker, I'll tell you that. So.
That's fair. Dillon's calling it now. I love it. You heard it here first, guys. I would, agree with everything you guys said about the match. I thought Roman and Jacob were definitely the highlights of the match, Roman particularly, and I have really come around on him. His silence says so much. His turn to a babyface within the span of 24 hours is just incomparable, in my opinion. It's incredible. I can't wait to see what comes next. The last thing I'll sort of say is, yes, The Rock will always get a pop. He's bigger than anything ever. However, I think the three of us can agree that it was not a good decision, I think, to have him come out tonight. Dillon, do you disagree?
No. I think I was actually talking a little bit about this on Twitter today. I think my problem is that he didn't do anything. And if The Rock is going to come out, like, I wouldn't mind him strolling to the ring, standing in between Cody and Roman, and then make a decision, like whether it's a tease or a full blown attack.
Yeah.
Like, kind of tease like where your allegiance is a little bit. But him coming out and playing Sesame Street count along, it just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't really add to it. But I will say this, the one thing that WWE cameras did not pick up on, but Twitter did, or whoever was in the arena, they were filming Solo Sikoa at the time that the final boss came out, and somebody uploaded this on Twitter. And Solo leans into Jacob and the twins, and he says, "It's all part of the plan," which was not shown on WWE TV. That, I think, maybe would have made me feel a little bit better about the Rock thing, because then we would have had at least a tiny bit of, like, context. I'm all good with mysteries, but, like, what is you counting to 3 do? It doesn't really.
What was that?
So
I have no idea.
I agree with you that having The Rock come out and be like, do I take the old bloodline? Do I take the new bloodline? Do it. The place to do that is Survivor Series. When the two bloodlines, and then the music hits, and he just stands there and he's like, yep, the final boss is judging. Then he picks one. That's the place to do it, not here. And so if you're not going to do it here, although I agree with you, the right idea, then why is he there? I mean, he's there to get the pop. And, again, love The Rock, but this is the thing WWE sometimes gets wrong, bringing these old timers back just to juice ratings, get a pop, whatever, and putting them in places where maybe they're not needed. Because as you guys said, Cody was kind of an afterthought in this, and he's your reigning, like, ahead of Gunther, champion. Gunther got better play, so yay. Gunther got better play last 2 nights ago than Cody did, because he had some good lines and he had some fun with it. Whereas Cody was just kind of like, I'm the guy they're going to beat down. Roman makes the save. Oh. Yeah. That's the Sami Zayn role, Cody. That's not the Cody Rhodes role.
Absolutely.
I'll use a metaphor to describe how I felt about the Rock thing. When you open a nice, crisp can of Coke, it's fizzy. The pop is amazing. It's incredible. You wait a little longer and you linger on it. It's stale, it's gross, it's lost its fizz. I feel like this return kind of did that, where the initial pop, oh, hell yeah. The final boss, he's back. But now what? 2 days removed, nobody's talking about it. My Twitter is filled with Hell in a Cell talk and not anything to do with The Rock. It was just kind of a flash in the pan. And my real worry about this, because the next pay-per-view is a Saudi Arabia show, which I cannot imagine in a million years The Rock is going to be a part of. We got to now wait 2 months to get any sort of answer. And it's just like, why not wait until maybe the night after the Saudi show or do something? Because you had enough characters and story in this match. You didn't really need it at all. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yep, absolutely.
It's like Tony Khan booked it.
He had to get one more in. I knew it. I sort of, capping off the Rock thing. I think the Rock is now realizing that he can't just rest on being the Rock or the final boss anymore. People are going to critique it. And I think that's great. He probably was like, I'm going to come out, just stand right up near, the front entrance, and it's going to be the most enigmatic, powerful thing I can do. And as we're seeing now, everyone's like, what was that? Like, that didn't do anything. So I think you guys are right. I think you're right on that. I want to touch on the mystery thing to kind of wrap things up here. This is something WWE is doing now, which I am loving. And that is to not end the show with, they'll end the show, like fade to black, whatever, and it's over. But then we're getting these things that WWE wants to spread virally and organically. And I'm going to go ahead and play this clip, and we'll sort of because I think this is where Cody is going. We mentioned a lot that he was an afterthought in this match, but I think what we're going to see in just a second here is going to be that in between before we get to Survivor Series.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and play that, and we'll start to wrap things up. So for you guys just listening, this is a video of Kevin Owens beating the living hell out of Cody Rhodes actually outside.
I got most of it. Oh my! Why are you so mad for this?
That's KO's car. I love it. All right. I think that's enough. So, I mean, we're getting so many different fans' vantage points of this event playing out. What do you guys think? Initial thoughts to WWE going a step further now and depending on the fans to continue these stories after it goes off the air.
I think it's so exciting for me, the fact that we're at a point again in WWE, because I was watching in 2019. I watched through the pandemic era. We all know it sucked. It was awful. The fans were watching because I think a lot of us felt like we had to. We had to tune into WrestleMania. We had to tune into this. But I don't think much of us were really engaged with the product at that point. This and the fact that Hunter and the team are saying, you know what, let's rely on the fans, knowing that they have them wrapped around their finger and engaged in all these storylines, shows you how successful they've managed to turn this company around and get us back to, you know, near Attitude Era heights in terms of fans wanting to engage with what's going on. If you did this in 2019, I don't even know if anybody would have filmed it. I think it just would have been like a little rumor on, you know, the dirt sheets and stuff. But the fact that they are relying on fans filming one of, if not the biggest storyline, because it involves the WWE champion, I think it's awesome. I think it's incredible. And one, I think Cody needs to stop going around that bus at night. And he needs to maybe get the Glock that Arn Anderson was talking about. Because I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, Dillon said in our private chat before we started here, Cody's now 0 for 2 around the bus. So that's true. That's true. And also like cutting promos on Twitter and Instagram. It's just such a new way of these characters enriching themselves and furthering the stories as well.
And I'm a little old school when it comes to, you know, kayfabe. I kind of don't love using that term because I've never wrestled a match in my life, but the one that everybody understands, kayfabe. I've always been pretty against wrestlers who are on Twitter using their real names, like while they're actively a wrestler. I always thought like, man, that's kind of like, at least lean into the character a little bit. I know kayfabe has been dead for a long time, but lean into it slightly. What these guys are doing now with cutting promos on Twitter, like Drew McIntyre's got an amazing TikTok account. The Rock, whenever he used to do Twitter stuff, it's kind of blurring the line for me a little bit, and it's adding to the suspension of disbelief for me to kind of engage with these characters, because I know that if I watch, you know, Grayson Waller post a video on his Twitter, he's not going to be like, you know, it's been a really fun time working with Randy Orton. He's such a professional. It's awesome. No, he's going to run that guy down on Twitter the same he would on SmackDown. So I love the way that they're using this. It's blurring that line again for me, which is exciting for me as a fan.
Absolutely. Paul, what do you make of all this new way of, like, I guess, you know, cutting promos and building characters?
Well, I'll be slightly contrarian, but I'll preface it by saying I don't have a cell phone and I'm 57 years old. So I'm the wrong, it's not intended for me. I'm also a media professional. I'm pretty good at marketing, so I get it. And everything Dillon said is true. It's just not really for me, but I'm one of those guys who goes, doesn't work for me, but keep doing it because it works for a whole different generation, and that's fine. My only quibbles with it is you rely on seeing the right, assuming you see it. So I looked it up because you guys had mentioned, I said, oh, well, I'll look it up. And so the Twitter feed I got, or the person who filmed it I got, just bad camera work. But, they're at a different angle, and maybe that's the fun of it, I guess. But I got the guy going, Owens is turning heel. And it's like, I'm getting bad commentary along with, and then the video just goes to some guy's ass. Like the cat, he's become so invested in watching what's happening. He puts the camera down, and you're just staring at the guy in front of him. It's like, ooh, what kind of video is this? So, you kind of might have to search out the better videos. I know one of the criticisms would be that, like Star Wars, I hated about modern Star Wars that you kind of felt like you had to read 8 books, 3 comic series, and surf the internet to understand what was going on in the new movies sometimes. Even though I didn't like the new movies, I still watch them. It's like, wait, what happened? I hate that. I hate that when you have to go out to ancillary media to understand what's happening. The Marvel Universe suffers from that a bit too, or it suffered in the end. So as long as they're careful about that, the one thing WWE has that Star Wars and Marvel didn't, you don't have to wait a year for the next installment. So happens last night, you guarantee you, if you didn't see it, they're playing it tonight.
Exactly.
And they will reference it tonight or on Friday for SmackDown, whichever show. And so that is my only real complaint about it, that you'd wind up like the Star Wars fan, what the heck? But it's solved by the fact that if you didn't see it when it happened or within an hour, it's part of the storyline, so you're gonna be caught up. So WWE has the ability to do what Star Wars and Marvel and others don't, which is keep it, fresh. Yeah. So when you have that ability and you don't overuse it and it doesn't become cliched and everything, then yeah, it absolutely works. And I'll probably, if I hear about it, I'll go search it out myself, even if I'm not constantly doing this. So I didn't see it when it came up, but I'll go have a look. It might take me 3 or 4 times to find the right fan video who's not filming some guy's butt or, he's going heel or whatever.
Swearing. Yeah, I get it.
That kind of stuff. And frankly, as a filmmaker, to find an angle I like too. So the one you just showed was actually pretty good. I kind of like that one. But the weird thing is with the guy with the butt shot, he's over here. So you see Owens. So there you go. You could stream them all together, put them all together. You see Owens walking. You can see him get the trash can, throw it, and then you get the whole thing where he walks into the car. So it's like filming a feature film, and you're shooting the same scene from 4 different angles. Yep. They should. What I'd like to see is some enterprising. I'm sure it's happening. Some enterprising fan go, listen, I'm going to take 4 or 5 of these angles. I'm going to cut them all together. And now watch this. And here it is from every angle. So it does give the fans something to do. Now, having seemed like an old curmudgeon, I will tell you, when I began my career in film and television, I worked for a company named Salter Street Films, even before my time in government, as one of the 2 guys who helped design the independent film channel in Canada. So we were doing a bunch of specialty channel applications to get new TV channels, whatever. I was the junior guy. And one of the things they had me do was come up with some show ideas, which, I've never been in the film industry before. I'm a lawyer and a musician. What am I doing here? All right, this sounds like fun. And one of the ideas I had harkened back to when they killed Robin. When DC Comics killed the Jason Todd crummy Robin as opposed to Dick Grayson, they put it to a fan vote. And that was kind of like what they're doing now. They tried to engage the fans. So call this 1866 number, whatever it was, within a week, and Jason Todd lives or dies, and they had 2 stories written, depending on what you, the fans, vote. And they voted to kill him. I would have too if I could have afforded the call. So the idea I came up with Salter Street was same kind of thing. Totally impractical. It shows what I knew about television. But you would have this weekly thing where every episode, like a video game where you could take 2 paths, Knights of the Old Republic, eventually Jedi, Sith. You would have this, fans would be making choices each week. You'd give them 2 options and they could call in or internet in or whatever and pick one. And the idea, totally dissimilar to what they're doing here. But even back then, in the late 90s, I understood with the internet coming on, you'd want to get the fans involved. You want to get the audience involved. It's the holy grail that those of us in the industry are always trying to do. We're doing Beyond Haunted, which is this extra show for the show we do, Haunted, that Ryan's hosting. and it's kind of a podcast for Haunted. More content, stuff, behind the scenes. Dillon did a show called The Last Divide, and then he showed the After the Divide, where he just talked about making it, Talking Dead, all that kind of stuff. So it's not the same thing, but I do recognize the utility of getting the fans involved, giving them more. And so I've totally swung around from being a contrarian. It's like, I love it, because not only are the fans getting involved in terms of seeing extra content, which is great, but they're also incorporating that do we kill Robin or not kind of thing. They're actually involved in making the content. They are co-creating the content with WWE because they're filming it. And eventually, I think some of the reactions from the fans who are there are going to bleed into what's happening.
I have no doubt.
So it's almost like, Dillon, when you and I were at that thing we talked about at the very beginning where Mike Speedball, whatever his name is, came flying through the crowd. Once you're out of the ring and into the crowd, like it changes a bit. That he sat down in a chair and I think somebody kicked him, but it was just people like, put him in the chair. People are egging him on. And I think then the story, it's Ryan in our UFO world, Greg Bishop talks about co-creation, aliens and observers co-creating a story, all this kind of stuff. WWE is singularly perfectly positioned to pull that off, given the nature of their storytelling and how they deliver content. So kudos to Paul Triple H Levesque, as they call him now, I guess. This is really clever stuff. Even if I'm not the guy who's going to be looking on the phone, I can appreciate the genius of it. So
yeah,
A++++.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, man. Co-creation and free publicity. I mean, come on, like these videos going viral. WWE doesn't have to pay a dime for that. You cannot pay for that sort of double
Broadcasters
exposure.
talk about earned media. This is earned social media.
Yes,
and if you can actually get it to go viral and stuff, it's a gold mine, like Bonanza. Yeah.
Yep.
Good
Absolutely.
stuff. Smart thinking. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't see in AEW. Honestly, partly because they don't have the resources. They just don't have the resources. They might someday, and then maybe they'll do it. But they just don't have the resources now. WWE does. And sometimes being the biggest guy in the block, if you use it right, gives you the power and the ability to do some really interesting things. So good for them.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we did it. We made it past Bad Blood. I can't wait to see what happens on Raw this week, on SmackDown, and on
Main Event.
What? Oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Main Event,
yeah. When is that?
I don't know. Never watch it.
Okay, that's fair.
Weekly show, not Saturday night's Main Event, which I'm very excited for. But,
yeah. It's going to be cool. All right, guys. Well, let us know where we can find everything you are up to. I have a sneaking suspicion I know what you're up to, at least right now. But throw us the socials or what you're doing and where we can find everything you're up to. Dillon, let's start with you, buddy.
Don't use Facebook or Instagram because I just lost interest, but I do talk a lot about wrestling and films and all that on Twitter, and you can follow me at Dillon Garland, DILLONGARLAND there. And if you're a horror fan, I'm going to do a cheap plug, if you will. If you're a horror fan, I'm running for Rue Morgue's Face of Horror right now, which allows me to win $13,000, which I plan to use for a horror film. And some other really cool things. And if you're up for that, please consider voting for me. If you hate every take I had tonight, totally fine. Feel free to send me any sort of threat you want on Twitter. I'm used to it by now. But that is where you can find me if you want to yell at me.
Perfect, buddy. We will have links to the Face of Horror and your Twitter below, guys. Definitely vote. You can vote daily for that. And Dillon is he's literally in the finals at this point. So
I'm at the top of the rung. I just have to reach for that belt, kid. Make yourself famous. I'm getting there.
You're going to get there, man. Top of the ladder. I love it. I love it. Paul, where can we find everything you're up to? And what are you up to right now?
Most of the time, I'm watching old Kane videos on the network. Occasionally, I work in a Gangrel match just for fun. I'm sad that those two never had a really big feud. It's a shame.
Yeah.
Kane versus Gangrel. There's the Mount Rushmore right there. So, sorry. At Paul Kimball Film. You don't want to be on my Facebook. I think I privatized it or whatever anyway, so you probably couldn't find it. But yeah, I occasionally offer wrestling takes. Usually I repost what Ryan's doing and go, totally wrong. Kane
That's
rules.
about right. Yeah.
But yeah, at Paul Kimball Film, come find me on Twitter. And right now we're shooting a television show called Haunted with these two clowns and some other clowns and this clown and killer clowns. And really, it's the Lucky season 13. So the entire thing is Search for Kane. That's the Demon Kane. We're searching for the Demon Kane.
That's perfect.
And we miss you, Andrew. Have me back on the show sometime when you're here.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're the best host.
What is this late stage heel turn that we have Paul doing right now?
I
don't
know
what's going on.
We're all staying in the same house, folks. Like Dillon's right over there and Ryan's upstairs. So afterwards,
it's
stuff
happening.
Is going down.
Yeah, I'm sure they could hear a couple echoes throughout. We are in the same house right now.
Kids on Liverpool will be filming it and putting it up on Twitter later tonight.
It's going viral. It's going viral, baby. I love it. Awesome, guys. Yes, and you can check out the first 4 seasons of Haunted now on the Eastlink YouTube channel. So be sure to go subscribe to that. Subscribe right here to Somewhere in the Ring. We have a Patreon if you want some bonus content. Andrew and I do a bunch of match commentaries over there. So you can join there at patreon.com/Somewhere in the Ring podcast. And all of that goes to help support the show, make it bigger, and gain visibility. So we would love for you to do that. Subscribe wherever you get the show. Check out Bad Blood if you haven't already and see. We want to know what your thoughts were. And you can do that over on our official Facebook page, our very active Somewhere in the Ring Facebook page. Just search for Somewhere in the Ring. And I think that's it for shameless plugs, guys. So we're going to get out of here. We got to go hunt some ghosts at the historically haunted Astor Theater here in Nova Scotia. So I want to thank you guys for talking wrestling, but now we're strictly in ghost mode. So Dillon, Paul, thank you for joining me for this review of Bad Blood.
Hail Kane.
Hail Kane.
Thank you for having me. Ones to the sky, everybody. And not that fake solo crap. We're talking Roman.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.